Patriot fans are starting to drive me crazy. This is the first year that the Pats have not had Tom Brady under center. I don't know if people are just speculating too much, there's nothing to really talk about, or if people are just, quite frankly, hitting the panic button. And these Facebook groups and Reddit Patriot groups aren't the best places to go get opinions. I know that. It's a small group of people, but some of these opinions are absolutely driving me crazy, and there's two that I think are nuts. Belichick put Matt Cassell in at quarterback and won 11 games. He can take anyone and make them win. So I understand the thought process of wanting to predict the future. And naturally, you're going to look at the last year that Bill Belichick had to replace Tom Brady and look at the results. The problem is year 2020 and year 2008, they're completely different teams and completely different scenarios. So Matt Cassell was given a team in 2007 that's widely considered one of the greatest teams of all time. Some people might even consider them the greatest team of all time, but I'm not going to get into that. Matt Cassell was brought in and he did a great job, and I think he was a solid quarterback, but if you're ever going to be brought in as a backup quarterback, I think that scenario in 2008 is probably the best one that you can ever think of. Another great scenario would be to be a backup quarterback for the Chiefs. They have four unbelievable weapons. They have this high-powered offense. Even though they had a backup quarterback in there last year, I think you could have taken Matt Cassell and he would have been solid there. You probably could have taken Brian Hoyer, and he probably would have been great in Kansas City last year. Stidham going into 2020 is not the same thing as Matt Cassell going into 2008. This offense coming up this year is going to be more like the 49ers offense of last year, where they're going to be handing the ball off a lot. Stidham's going to be asked to make throws where he's going to take what the defense gives him, minimize mistakes, and lean on that great defense that the Patriots have. Bill Belichick does an unbelievable job of maximizing the abilities of every single player at every single position. He's done it over and over again, and he's going to do that for Jarrett Stidham. But at the end of the day, the success of Jarrett Stidham is going to be on the shoulders of Jarrett Stidham. Whether Stidham is an absolute bust or they go to a Super Bowl and win, that's not going to change my opinions about Bill Belichick and him as a coach. And, you know, this could have been another point of things that grind my gears about some Patriot fans, is they like to look at Belichick and say he was nothing without Brady, and they point towards his record prior to the Tom Brady era when he was in Cleveland. But the bottom line is, if you look at documentaries about his time in Cleveland, he actually did an excellent job. He was rebuilding that whole organization, and by that third year, I believe it was, they made it to the playoffs, and he did a great job. And then the year after, of course, they announced that they were going to move, and then the wheels kind of fell off from the distractions of that. The second thing that's driving me nuts is people saying this team stunk last year. They just had an easy schedule. With this schedule in 2020, you got to sack up and tank for Trevor. So the team going 12-4 last year, I think it's funny because it's really difficult to get 12 wins in the NFL no matter what your schedule is. And also, I think this was actually one of Bill Belichick's most impressive seasons as a coach, because they got 12 wins, yes, against an easy schedule, but you got to look at who they lost. They lost David Andrews, they lost Isaiah Wynn, Marcus Cannon was really banged up for most of the year. They lost their fullback in Devlin. They lost two wide receivers. We're not going to talk about AB and Josh Gordon. Sanu, when we acquired him, his ankle was hurt pretty immediately. He was not 100%. Jules also had 3 injuries that basically was said to be season-ending, but they just really needed him to play. I think Scott Van Pelt, he said it the other night on SportsCenter after the Michael Jordan documentary. He said, "You win and people love you. You win for too long and people try to find things wrong." I understand being, 8-8 or 7-9 or even worse, and being in that middle ground of maybe not competing and making it to a Super Bowl is not good from a draft pick perspective. It's almost like you should either win the Super Bowl or get a first overall pick. But this team that the Patriots have, this is what people don't realize, is this squad without their offensive line, with so many people missing, you got the fullback missing, everybody that I just mentioned competed and made it to the playoffs and were a point away from beating the Titans, who were extremely underrated. That's an incredible defensive team, and they were right there in that game. Bill Belichick is not going to waste time. He's not going to waste contracts with Hightower, Tooney, Gilmore, Sony and James, Slater, Wino's coming around. You got the McCourty twins. This whole squad is really, really solid. Even with this hard schedule, all you have to do is make it to the playoffs. There's an extra slot there in the playoffs as well, in the postseason, and then anything can happen. I don't care how good other teams are. We've seen wildcard teams go on runs, and if the Patriots make it through this really, really difficult schedule and can find a way to make it into the playoffs, you're talking about an extremely battle-tested team a defense-first team, and it's probably going to mean that they figured out a way to really run that rock and everybody stayed healthy in the offensive line, or maybe they even made an acquisition. If you like this video, be sure to like and subscribe. We appreciate everybody who checks in with us. It means the world to us. Hit that notification bell. We go live every Wednesday at 6 o'clock Eastern, and stay safe out there.